right, so I just want to recognize who's present. Barbara Wheaton is here, Doug Cooper, myself, Frank Bakke, George Haas is here, Brian Mealy, Kathleen Devine, Tom Kelly, Jerry Doherty, and as I said, we're waiting for Jennifer Anderson to log in. Jeff Connolly is absent from the meeting today, and Kathy Gilliard is recording it. Meredith, are you on?
Yes, I'm here, Jill.
Okay. Meredith Allegro, Special Education Administrator. Greg Wormuth, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Am I missing
Jen
anyone?
Anderson, I'm here too.
Okay, great, Jen.
I'm here.
Sean Petretti is here as well.
Good morning, Sean.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm going to ask Barbara to open up the meeting.
Okay, I'd just like to call the March 26, 2020 Board of Ed budget meeting to order.
Can't hear.
Okay, we'll repeat it again.
I'd like to call the March 26, 2020 Board of Ed budget meeting to order. Everybody here?
Very faintly, Barbara.
Okay. I'll be louder next time.
Continue, man.
That's better.
Okay, we need a motion.
Do we need, I'll make the motion, we open.
And I'll second.
Brian seconds.
Okay, thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Yep.
Opposed? Motion's carried. We'll start off with Superintendent's proposed budget presentation.
Okay, Frank, you're going to flip out to the superintendent's presentation.
Yes, I'm putting that up right now. My mute unmute is a bit delayed, so if you're having trouble hearing me for a second. Okay, Joe, you should be ready to go.
Okay, on our end, we don't see it. We still see the meeting agenda right now, Frank.
Oh, really? Okay. I think
It's there now. Frank, it's there now.
I apologize in advance. So it looks like there's like maybe a 10-second lag in like on my screen. So I will be flipping. If you get a little bit of a lag, just let me know, and I'll do my best to try to. I've noticed with the muting and unmuting on my computer and the screen now, so I'll do my best to minimize.
Okay, so for purposes of this meeting today, this would be our last budget meeting. The superintendent put out a budget on February 13th, 2020. All of these materials have been posted on the website. Great, thank you. One of the items that we spoke about throughout the budget presentations are just our many successes here in the district. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these for purposes of an audio recording, but the graduation rates are outstanding, our AP scholars, our athletic and visual art program and music program. Last year we had scholarships of over $130,000 and a AA bond rating. All of those items that we are listing here, we want to continue to improve upon in the next year with some of the goals that we've set. We talked about budgeting is a constant cycle. Curriculum, technology, staffing, infrastructure, safety, and security are all important components of this budget, with the greater focus being on student learning. Frank, just so you know, we still only see the cover sheet of this presentation.
Okay. Yeah, there must be there's a little bit, it looks like, of a lag. So I was on the cover sheet, and then I went and was following your language.
Is everybody else seeing what I'm seeing, just the cover sheet?
Now I have the second page.
I'm,
Okay.
Yeah, the second
Wh-
page
what
is
I'm
up
gonna
now,
do-
Frank.
Okay, yep, so it looks like, it looks like there's like a 10, 20-second lag. I'm going to just exit out of sharing my screen and try to reshare, and maybe that'll kind of restart so it's not lagged. Because I'm
Okay.
doing it like based on your voice, but it's not updating to everyone else's screen at the same time. It's updating on my own computer.
Okay, well, I'm going to continue if you do that while I'm working through this. So we spent some time talking about budget strategies, where we were committed to delivering high-quality instruction and opportunities for children, creating a budget aligned to the district's mission and goals, reviewing prior year's expenditures and realigning areas in need while continuing to pursue efficiencies in all areas of the district, and more importantly, achieving a tax levy that was below our estimated tax threshold, which was 2.29%. At our last meeting on Tuesday, March 24th, the administration team made a proposal of a tax levy of 1.75. At that time, the Board of Education was in favor of the $55,000 adjustments to get to the 1.75. And so we'll talk about that a little bit later in the presentation. But we've spent a lot of time developing a multi-year plan for educational programs and district initiatives, including talking about an AP capstone program, some new math instructional materials, with a focus on advancing educational opportunities, continuing with the infrastructure improvements that Mr. Kelly has spoken about, utilizing the capital reserve funding for long-term improvements and repairs, and addressing the safety and security needs throughout the district. We have a budget calendar, believe it or not, that goes from July to July. If anyone is interested, you can see what we spend the most amount of time on is really the February, March, April planning, and then, of course, all the filings related to the budget later on. Mr. Bakke spoke about certain revenue limitations, including the tax cap formula, changes to foundation aid that result in less overall state aid to the district, federal government distributions, and increased need for school safety programs, mental health, and our changing demographics, which the state education department, it does not, and I should say the governor does not increase funding to districts at those levels. The property tax cap imposed in 2012 limited districts to a 2% increase, and we have followed that. And as you can see, right now we're at a 1.75 tax levy, so that's under the 2%. And again, I want to reiterate, it's not an actual 2%. There's many numbers that go into that formula, which as a result is the 2.29% tax levy threshold. On February 13, 2020, we had a 1.69% change from last year's budget, and we were proposing a tax levy of 1.9. At that time, we talked about a 2.51 allowable levy, which at that time we did not have our BOCES budget numbers in to make that exact calculation, as well as some capital reserve numbers that needed to be refined. On March 5th, we still had the 1.9 for the proposed tax levy, but the allowable final levy was 2.29 at the March 5th meeting. We were still, at that time, 0.4% under the tax cap. At the March 24th meeting, due to the economic climate, we made some recommended adjustments to the original proposed budget, which we went over in detail at the last meeting. You can hear that on an audio recording, and it's listed on the website. But that came to a $55,275 deduction. Some of the items include some makerspace items, some new course materials that we thought we could purchase in advance. We removed a basketball scores table, and we were able to get some cheaper prices on renewals more recently in this economic climate for some software. So at the end of the meeting on March 24th, our proposed budget was $41,418,100, which was a 1.55% change. The now proposed tax levy to the Board of Education is a 1.75% change. Again, our allowable levy was 2.29%. We are 0.5% under the tax cap at this point in time. If you go to the next page in the presentation, it just provides some more refined detail in terms of the cost being budget to budget increases and how we get to the 1.75. So if you look budget to budget, it's a $634,052 budget to budget increase. We've spoken a lot about what the budget supports: new math resources, a focus on STEAM and computer education, computer science education, expanded electives in the arts and business programs, replacement of new furniture to meet students' learning needs, expanding IT security and infrastructure, enhancing and replacing some equipment, and continuing to upgrade learning spaces, bathrooms, faculty rooms throughout the high school and Cutchogue East Elementary School. This projected enrollment number is a moving target, but at the time of the presentation in February, we had projected 1,039 students to be enrolled. Currently, we have, I think, I don't know with this if we've had any students not returned, but we have, I think, 1,098 students to date. Our kindergarten enrollment numbers. Kathy, do you have an updated number on how many students enrolled for kindergarten? Okay, so I think Dr. Devine is on mute right now, but at this point in time, right before all of this, I think we had about 35 students enrolled for kindergarten. If any family...
It's Kathy Devine. Yes, we're still at that. The appointments that were scheduled, they were canceled. They'll be rescheduled when we reopen.
Okay.
We know the ones to contact.
Okay, so Kathy, how many pending registrations did you have? Do you know about?
We have about 7.
So would that bring us to 42?
Correct.
Okay. We'll reach out to those families just to let them know our process going forward. We're very proud, again, of our exceptional educational opportunities. We still, in this proposed budget, have class sizes between 18 and 21 in most classes. We have one class at 23. We did have 4 students disenroll just the other day. So, again, a moving target. I haven't really spent a lot of time on the enrollment numbers over the past 2 weeks, but something we can come back and revisit. I'm very proud to know that we continue to offer interscholastic athletics, which the majority of our students participate in. Elementary clubs was expanded last year and continues to be expanded in this budget. The NJROTC program will run student programming such as suicide prevention, digital citizenship, and environmental programs will continue to be a focus. We talked about expanding the business and law program. If you recall, last year we offered for the first time a financial literacy course and computer science 1. Special programs such as artists in residence, after school remediation, before and after care, and our culinary program will continue. Our UPK program, which was offered last year at the Laurel facility, was approved at the agenda on the March 24th agenda to be housed at Cutchogue East next year. So we're very happy to be able to offer that program in district. We, at the time, have 27 children that will be afforded that opportunity. This year, only 20 children took advantage of that. That is all grant funded through the New York State Education Department. We have environmental programs available, social emotional learning and health programs. We continue to have a focus on professional development and best practice, including school visitations and teacher-led initiatives. We are very, very proud of our outreach to our community partnerships, the North Fork Coalition, the South Hill Police Department, our local libraries, and the Anti-Bias Task Force, CAST, and we're fortunate to have our E&L liaison. And of course, our booster clubs, PTAs, and SEPTA organizations. Following along, the capital reserve items to be considered, we talked about early on in this budget were new roofs, were potential, I want to say potential, these were items to be considered. New roofs at Cutchogue East or the high school, pole barn at Cutchogue East to house some of the equipment, an athletic field renovation behind the gymnasium at the high school, very large project, the front of the high school, a fascia project renovation, the potential of a multi-purpose room at the high school, renovations to the steam wing, and new boilers at Cutchogue West and at the high school. We're going to speak a little bit about that next. And again, the mission statement of the Mattituck-Cutchogue School District is dedicated to providing a welcome and safe environment where diversity, interdependence, and self-discovery are valued. Mrs. Wheaton and myself spoke about really how this mission statement has come to life throughout this crisis and our challenges. Our community partnerships have been critical in this, and our teachers have just really stepped up. We couldn't have asked for better delivery of instruction. Many districts throughout the island are praising Mattituck for their delivery of instruction. And honestly, due to the administrators really rolling up their sleeves even before school was closed, anticipating what could be, we had a plan in place and we were able to roll out our educational program far ahead of many other districts. But what we're most proud of is that families are receiving the instruction. We have a help desk available to them and many other opportunities, including software programs and technology for students to learn from home. So again, I just want to thank the staff, and that goes from the facilities team who are really here every day. We are part of a governmental agency, which means we have essential employees still reporting to work every day. This morning, I received approval that our educational instruction plan, our remote learning plan, was approved, as well as our food service plan, where on Monday we will be delivering food to 100 families. Our child care program has not yet been approved, but we are working with, Southold Town and potentially Southold School District to provide a joint child care program at Cutchogue East. After this meeting, I'll spend a little time just doing some research, but I may have to call an emergency board meeting to have the board approve an IMA, which is an intermunicipal agreement to be able to combine programs, but it will be hosted by the same provider. So, okay, on to the capital reserve projects. I think that's next on the agenda. So at our 3-hour board meeting on Tuesday, the longest board meeting I think we've ever had.
I think it was 4 hours.
Included capital reserve projects, and we went through each project in detail. At the end of that meeting, the Board of Education had asked the administration to go back and take a look one more time at the proposal of new roofs at Cutchogue East, which are needed right now to make those repairs, a new boiler at Cutchogue West, to take a look at the Mattituck High School fascia proposal, which was a very expensive project, and also a multi-purpose room at the high school. Our team spent a lot of time Tuesday afternoon and yesterday doing some further research on these projects once we had a commitment from the board on these 4 projects. Our recommendation at this point in time, after speaking with the architect, is to move forward with the new roof at Cutchogue East, the new boiler at Cutchogue West, place the Mattituck High School fascia project on hold till next year. with making some perhaps minor repairs and including the multipurpose room at the high school. Our suggestion, especially in this climate, is to hold on the Matatuck High School fascia. As you know, that was over an $814,000 project. And we need some more finer detail in terms of what that would encompass, some more drawings and plans from our architect, and in terms of like fine tuning that quote. We can wait another year to do those repairs. So our suggestion is to remove that item for this year and to focus on those 3 other items. Furthermore, in terms of propositions, we would have a proposition for the budget, which would be at 1.75% tax levy. And our suggestion is to bundle the 3 projects together to make it very simple for the public to vote on that one item as a proposition. Again, the 2 items are very, very much needed, in fact, required, and the multipurpose room would be used by many organizations, many students, and we feel that's an excellent recommendation at this point in time. The 3rd proposition was a discussion the Board of Education had at several meetings, was to create a repair reserve. And we would recommend moving forward, creating that repair reserve after speaking with our attorneys and our architect. And our recommendation for the repair reserve, which would be the 3rd proposition on the budget, would be a recommendation of $750,000, not to exceed $750,000. The way the repair reserve works is that the public needs to vote on the creation of the repair reserve. They do not have to vote on the repairs itself, the specific repairs. Again, we would use those repairs on an emergency basis for items that are, well needed at that point in time. What happens is the board makes a determination at the end of the school year how much fund balance that they would like to place in that reserve. Some of our fund balance has gone into the capital, which we could do up to $750 a year in the capital. For the repair reserve, the whole reserve in totality, you can only go up to $750. So it might be, $200,000, it could be $300,000, whatever the board makes the determination in terms of at the end of the school year how much they want to fund that. So it's not that we're putting $750 in it for this budget cycle. It's up to, it can be funded over the next few years. Does anybody have any questions about any of those recommendations?
Jill, this is George Haas.
Hi, George.
Hi. I just want to clarify one thing. You say the front of the school can wait a year, that just some minor repairs. We're not talking about the $50,000 worth of painting and repairing that Tom mentioned yesterday, are we?
No, we're not. So we would just do like a repair on an as-needs basis. So if something, and George, were to like be crumbling, where we could caulk and like secure certain parts of the building in the front there, that's what we're talking about. No major repairs. Like we don't want to spend money that we're only going to repair hopefully in the following year. Just maintenance that to make sure that it doesn't fall apart.
Okay, and Tom feels pretty comfortable that there's just a slight chance of some minor issues if we wait a year?
Tom, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here, Jill.
Okay, Tom, can you comment?
Yeah, George. Yeah, we're pretty confident it is, as long as it gets passed within the next year or two, with some minor repairs, we should be fine. We'll keep monitoring it, especially the winter months are the tough months, obviously, and the winter's been pretty mild the last 2. So we will keep monitoring it and do repairs as needed.
Okay, thank you.
George, I would just add, Doug Cooper, I would just add in that in this climate to try and spend another $800,000 on repairs that we need there, I would strongly support putting it off another year or 2 if we need to, and hopefully the economy and climate will be better. some of the minor repairs that it needs on the front of the school is just some touch-up paint, just to make some of it look better. But there's nothing really catastrophic yet. But we will
Okay,
have
yeah,
to.
no, Doug, I agree. I'm fine with that. I just wanted to make sure that, you know, it wasn't going to bite us in the rear end by making this decision.
I don't believe it will whatsoever, George.
Okay, great, thanks.
Jen
Well-
Anderson here. I have a question.
Okay, Jen.
The fascia, if holding it off for a year or two, it would have to go through the capital reserve in the future. But if the repair reserve gets approved, could we use funds from there to repair the fascia?
Yeah, so the capital, first of all, the repairs could go through either budget code or either reserve fund. It could go in the capital or it could go in the repair fund. You could do a combination depending on like timing. You know, you might want to put some in the capital, you might want to put some in the repair, or it's really a determination for the board to decide. Because it is a repair and not new construction, it can go in either code.
Okay. Because I did take a look at it, and there are parts that are falling down. I mean, holding it off for a year, I think it's okay, but I don't think it's going to hold up much longer. Some
Okay.
parts of it.
And I want to be clear, though, so with us setting up the repair reserve, our intent, though, is not to do the fascia. So we're not setting up the repair reserve to do the fascia next year. We are asking the board to hold off a year only to do necessary repairs that would cause further damage. Okay, any other questions? Okay. The next
We need
part of the,
I guess it's further in the agenda where we'll approve this, right?
correct, yes.
Okay,
We're going to have to make some amendments further in the agenda because as of yesterday, we had all 4 projects to be considerations for the capital. So you're going to have to make some amendments to the agenda that takes out the fascia project. Okay, so at this point in time, I would like to introduce Ms. Meredith Allegro. She is the Special Education Director. This is her first budget meeting PowerPoint. Yes.
Welcome to the frying pan, Meredith.
Hello, Meredith.
Hi, thank you, everybody.
All right, Meredith, I'm just we're gonna pause just for a second to see if Frank can get in line with where we are in the presentation.
Okay, and then I have the presentation up on my phone, so if we can't, you know, align it, I could just go by what's on my phone.
Okay. Give it a second. Okay, it's up.
Okay. It's up, you guys can see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks like, yeah, maybe about 5-10 seconds. And again, I'm hoping that this recording will actually be live because my screen is real time, so it should be recording on that. So just let me know if you need any adjustments, but I'll continue to move it and trust that the slides are moving.
Okay. Okay, so hello, everybody. This is, my first budget presentation, but I just wanted to go over a couple of things that, the schools are proud of. We're continuing with special classes in grades 1 through 3 and 4 through 6 at Cutchogue East and 7 through 8 and 9 through 12 at Medituck High School. We have integrated co-teaching at every level in the elementary school and in the junior and senior high school. We continue with the full continuum of related services for all of the students. A point of pride is that 100% of the students with disabilities graduated last year, 16% with an advanced Regents diploma, 68% with a Regents diploma, and 16% with a local diploma. At the elementary level, the special education teachers are really excited to be part of the Writers Workshop Professional Development. They're happy to continue with the ICT model at all levels to support the learning styles of all of the students without interrupting curriculum or the student's school day. And they're really excited to be learning new technology and programs that assist the students who struggle with traditional methods of learning. At the high school, I guess if we look at the next slide, I don't know.
You can keep going.
Okay, so as far as transition services, we do still continue to have the coordinator for K through 12. We offer family support and supports through OPWDD, guardianship, Social Security, Office of Mental Health, Medicaid and Front Door, and the School to Career program. As far as our vocational program, we have 2 students who have paid employment at BJ's this year. We have students going to Petco, PetSmart, ShopRite, BJ's, and Splish Splash to learn soft skills. And they are using the SCAT transportation services to go to their work sites and to go to their respite. And then moving forward for next year, we're going to be participating in unified sports. And this year, the students attended a leadership training conference, and they're really excited for that. As far as our proposed budget, which I think, oh, sorry, skipping over assistive technology. 38% of our IEP students are using assistive technology in the form of scanning pens, iPads, remind watches, augmentative alternative communication devices. 25% of the students are using accessible text through Bookshare and Learning Ally, which has been really important to them during this remote learning time. And 18% of them have access to specialized software such as Here Builder, RazKids, Fast Math, iExcel, and speech to text. Again, they're really utilizing that during the remote learning time. Next year, we plan to continue our partnership with the North Fork Coalition, the Best Buddies Club, continue with the Wellness Room, job coaching, and our alliance with SEPTA. The next slides are our proposed budget for next year. And as you can see, we've gone down in a lot of the areas. Just wanted to highlight a couple of areas. One of the areas that we did go up in was the special ed contractual other, and that is due to an out-of-district placement that we had a place a student in this year. So that's like the one area that we have the biggest increase in our budget for next year. But to offset that, we've been able to move some of our budget items that were in this budget to our 611 grant, so just to offset the costs. We're going to continue with the North Fork Coalition next year, and our dues for that will be less. It'll only be $5,000 instead of the $12,500 that it was previously. So that's a savings as well. As far as what the proposed budget will support is to continue to provide the students with educational opportunities in their least restrictive environment, be able to continue the partnership with the North Fork Coalition, support the students' individual needs with the technology, and support students in participating in the development of their individualized education programs, and continue to promote participation in after-school activities. So I just want to, before I open it up to any questions, I just really want to thank everybody for making me feel so welcome. The staff and the students, the community members have been really supportive during my transition. And I really look forward to continuing to support the great work that's being done, in special education in this district.
Thanks, Meredith. I do just want to add with the special education budget, as Mrs. Allegro mentioned, much of this is driven by student need. So you can see on the first slide where it's the proposed budget, you'll see some costs reduced. That's really just, again, based on need. Some students have graduated with more needs and some students have come in with less need. So we always try to provide students with we do provide students with the requirements based on their IEPs. However, we hope to transition students from needing, a full continuum of services as they move through the grades.
Meredith, I know you're new to the district. Are there any programs or any wishes that you have for maybe the following year that you're aware of? Anything you'd like to change?
So I think that one of the things that we've been looking at, and I've been talking to staff about in the short time that I've been here, is looking at the full continuum of services. So right now we're offering students services through integrated co-teaching and also through special classes, but we're not offering at this time resource room. So we were going to begin exploring that and having conversations around that based on student need. And there are some ways that we might be able to experiment with it a little bit with the budget that we have for next year, depending on, you know, how students' annual reviews turn out. But that is one area that we're looking to explore, see if we can, you know, offer a little bit more or different supports for the students.
There was, Mr. Wormus, I think you're on the line. There were some discussions about perhaps bringing back adaptive PE in some areas. You want to speak to that a little bit?
That is one thing Ms. Allegro and I are discussing is where appropriate, how do we bring back the adapted physical education program in both the junior and senior high school, or how do we meet the needs, to not just the physical, but the mental, emotional, and social needs of our students in that setting.
Yeah, so some discussions have been talking about using the wellness room and pieces like that. But again, we're going to try to work within the budget here to provide, or at least start to provide some of those services. But I think as Mrs. Allegro becomes more familiar with the program and has discussions with teachers, that is one piece that we are missing, is the resource room, where students go from an AIS, a remedial program, and then go kind of really skip resource room and go right into the IACT. So we'd like to explore that a little bit more. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Meredith.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the next presentation is, I think you, Greg, Health PE Athletics. We'll have Mr. Baki put that up on the screen.
It's up on my screen. Just let me know when you're ready to go.
Well, Frank, thank you, but I can't see it, and I looked through my H drive to try to find another copy. Is this in SharePoint or OneDrive that I can pull it up on my own? I've searched through there, but can't seem to find it.
It is on, it should be in the OneDrive. I will send it to you right now.
You'll send it through email, is that correct?
Yes. Greg, I could walk you through it.
I can't see anything. Here's the first one. Okay.
It's coming your way in email in just a second, Greg.
I've been following through the board docs.
Okay, it's sent. Yeah, I apologize for the lag. I don't know really if anyone has their videos on, if you can just make sure all the videos are off. It looks like most of them are off. If it gets to the point where it's so lagged that it's making it difficult to follow, we could always try to just exit out of the whole meeting, go back in. But I think that if it's tolerable, if you're able to follow along with something else, we might continue.
Yeah, we're going to continue. Frank, we're just on your screen right now, though. You have your web page up. Not your web page, your folders up.
Yeah. So that's just because I just sent Greg the presentation. Okay. You should be seeing the full presentation in just a few, 10 seconds.
Okay, so I'm going to control this. You can't see where I am, I guess, because I'm controlling it through what Frank just sent me.
Yep. Yeah, so you're going to go on Making a Difference, Greg?
Yeah, I'm on Making a Difference. And when we're talking about instruction, and what we're doing here is we're continuing to meet the New York State PE regulations in the elementary school by having physical education classes in grades K through 6 meet 3 times a week for the 120 required minutes weekly. So I'm very happy that we have done that. We did it several years ago. We got classes into PE 3 times a week, and we've been able to maintain that and continue. doesn't sound like a lot, but I think it's something that we should be very proud of because that is not the norm everywhere. So I think it's important that, we hold on to that. Another thing instructionally is we did implement our K-6 health education program this year, and we anticipate doing that again next year. That is grades K-6 will meet at K-2 has a different set of number of days in which they meet for health education, as 3 and 4 is a little bit different, and then 5 and 6 gets into a more regular health education program throughout the entire year. Excited about how that happened this year and what good stuff came out of that, and very excited to see where that can continue. Athletically, we're really maintaining in next year's budget, and just some highlights from this year. We do offer 19 different sports. We have 19 different sport offerings. We have 56 different athletic teams. For a school our size, we're still putting out a great product and putting kids on the courts, the fields, and the gym floor. So excited about those. This year, we had so many students interested in girls volleyball and boys basketball that we added a third team in each of those. Meredith mentioned that we added unified basketball, which is exactly what the word means, unified between your special education and your general education students participating in the sport of basketball this spring. Should we get back to the norm, we would get back to for the first time start a unified basketball program, and that would parlay us into the fall of next year with a unified soccer program, and then into next winter with a unified bowling program. So just great opportunities for kids. Our athletic field maintenance program has been implemented district-wide. This was really the first year we did a real comprehensive maintenance program, and you'll see that in the budget for next year as we're continuing that program. We got a scoreboard at Cutchogue West, the high school, and the Cutchogue East. So those are some of the highlights that we were able to do this year, as well as that sound system in the back auxiliary gym, which really has helped not only it will help for our testing, but it helped for our wrestling tournament. It just helped for announcing different things that take place in both of those gyms.
Greg?
Yeah.
Greg, Doug Cooper, just a question. I'm glad to hear about the special ed kids playing ball with our kids. Do we have any exceptional special ed students that are ball players?
Highly skilled, is that what you're meaning?
Yes.
Like highly skilled athletes in the sport of basketball?
Yes.
Basketball, soccer, you name it. Baseball, doesn't matter.
Absolutely. I think there's some very, very skilled students throughout our school district, both in the general education population and the special education population. This will be the first time we compete. So, how we fare in competition among the rest of the county remains to be seen. But I definitely think we're in a good place to go and compete at a high level in this type of environment.
Also, we have some of our students though in the special class that they participate in the regular sports. So we have one student who's out there every week on the wrestling mat. He loves the wrestling program.
So that's great. I just think that should give them a whole lot of confidence and be proud and pride in what they're doing and achieving. Thank you.
Sure. We're going to move on to the next slide as far as health, physical education, and athletics, and some of the differences that you'll see in the budget proposal from this year to next, and some of those changes. Look at there's an increase in just some maintenance and some upkeep of our wellness center, as you want to do that annually. some different things involved in your health and physical education classes for as far as subscriptions and trying to get kids trained and certified in CPR and different things like that. Um, there's not a lot of change in this budget. We're really trying to just maintain what we have. We're in a fairly good place right now. Educationally with health and physical education and athletically. I think like I said before, we put out a good product. And this is really a maintenance budget. It's maintaining what we have. Your biggest increase is your addition of your new unified sports teams. We're adding 3 sports teams there right there. We're adding interscholastically, we are adding a competitive varsity cheerleading team next year. So that's really where you're going to see any differences. Is just adding more programs for kids. So the cost is driven by what we offer, and how much we offer. And I think that's a great thing. Any questions on this slide here? I don't know if you see it.
Yes,
I
we
have a
can see it.
question.
Jennifer?
This is Jenny Anderson.
Yes.
Yes, just the first line with the 19,000 proposed for the wellness center. Can you just give more information as to maybe specifically what is that? I know the wellness center is pretty new, but is this?
Well, you'll see that that $19,000 is not connected just to the wellness center. It's the whole thing is instruction, it's general education, physical education equipment, and district wide. So you see that really in that the front gymnasium sound system will take on about 14,000 of that, and the rest is picked up within your wellness center and your physical education equipment. So your physical education equipment is whatever the supplies are for elementary, junior high, and high school PE annually. So a large portion of that is really a much needed sound system in that main gym. And if that sound system in the main gym will be equivalent to what's in the auxiliary gym. The main gym is not just used for announcing basketball games. Keep in mind, it is where we do have graduation. So that's why that has to be upgraded.
Right. So that was my question, just more information about that sound system, like how is it used? It's not just for one specific
It's
thing.
used for physical education classes on a daily basis. It's used for any sporting events, and it's used for any testing, and it's used for graduation.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this information?
Greg, this is Brian Mealy. I just wanted to thank you for a successful sports season, and it was my pleasure to support the kids, and that's particularly the wrestlers, the basketball kids, all the kids did the best they could. And I was wondering, with things being in flux for the sports coming up, is there any opportunities for kids to work on their own personal records, maybe while they're sequestered at home? Can you talk about that a little bit?
As Mr. Petretti, I think, discussed a little bit the other day, is you do encourage kids to go out and do some things on their own, but you have to be mindful of who they're doing it with, and so you want to promote some physical activity and some individual goal setting, but you really have to make sure you're sending the correct message that you should be doing it only with immediate family members, or certainly practicing your social distancing if you're going to do that. But we do have some resources that through the physical education has sent out as part of, a lot of their classes that they generate daily that kids are logging into, has a list of resources and activities that we're asking them to do.
Thank you.
Is it fair to say I can move to the next one?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so as far as the proposed budget initiatives, we want to continue to support health education K to 12, and what that looks like is making sure that we have the staffing to be in those classrooms and provide the services to those kids. And that's why I talked about earlier that Ms. Allegro and I will be discussing how to do that, whether it's an adapted PE program that we need to come back to, or really just how do we service our students in physical education, and what are the topics in health education that are really important today? We want to maintain the New York State PE compliance, like I spoke about before. You should be very proud of that, as I am, because as I said, it is not the norm everywhere that we offer that type of program in the elementary school. Some of the other ones I just talked about were the unified sports, the soccer, bowling, and basketball, adding that varsity competitive cheerleading. We have enough student athletes that are interested in that. This year we had I think we had 27 girls on our, what they would call our, on our cheer squad, which is non-competitive. And they want to move that into a competitive situation, which I think is going to be great and be interesting. We want to maintain all of our sport offerings that we currently have, even with the addition of the third junior high girls volleyball and the third junior high boys basketball program. I think if we continue to have the students are motivated to participate in those, and we can continue to offer them, I think that's important, and they're budgeted that way. And lastly, I think what we're doing right now is in good faith to maintain our athletic facilities. We're keeping up on equipment and our supplies. I will tell you that as fast as everything changes, the equipment standards change as quickly, and they seem to be changing even more rapidly in the last year for safety seals and stickers on all of our equipment. And we've had to budget to, I guess, transition into a new set of helmets and safety gear for different sports as the laws are changing so rapidly. Any questions on that slide?
Nope.
All right, we're going to move into security, I guess.
Yep, that's next. Thank you.
Want me to go to security?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Good to
Okay,
go,
making a
Greg.
difference. Security this year, we've implemented a Rave app. A lot of this I can't take credit for. I think a lot of this is the entire team, specifically Jerry and her team and Dave Smith, as far as the technology goes. But the Rave app, that was everyone worked on that. The Sonar Cloud app, we upgraded the paging system. We created the flip chart for every classroom. We replaced. We're in the process, or going to be in the process of replacing classroom doors so that they're a more safe, secure space for our staff and students. We went to the walkie-talkie system that we talked about all last year. We got it up and running, and it's certainly an asset to our district and gives us that ability to really communicate with one another in consistency. You'll see our security staff has a uniform, if you will, or at least identifying clothing that they wear on a daily basis. And what we've done is we have consistent staffing. And that doesn't necessarily mean the same person all the time, but it means that we have shifts that are covered consistently. Any questions there?
No.
Okay. So you're going to see some slight changes in the budget for next year, primarily in one of the biggest increases. You're going to see the strobe lights going in our large space areas. So that's going to consist of auditoriums, cafeterias, and stairwells, strobe lights, and your window and door labeling. So that's part of the door project that we talked about. Now we're going to go in and we met with a firm from a safety and security standpoint and outlined how it is that we should label the interior of the classrooms with numbers and the exterior of the classroom with numbers. And that's really for emergency response. So your big number there of increase is all about emergency response and how do we keep people on the inside safe and identify our areas so that emergency people can know where they're going once they get here.
Greg, I just want to ask, I do, on the strobe lights though, are the strobe lights in the stairwells or are any of them on the exterior of the buildings?
So there are stairwells, there are large gathering spaces, like I said, cafeteria, auditorium, etc. And there are also strobe lights on the exterior. So I failed to mention that. Thank you, Jill.
Greg,
Should students be outside during physical education or recess or even athletic events in the afternoon, those strobe lights would signify an emergency if should something happen. So we've really taken into consideration all the spaces where our students and staff might be, and how would we get that information to them? And the strobe lights was added to this budget.
Jennifer,
Greg,
you had a question?
yes, the strobe light, that category, is that a one-time cost or is it every year?
That's a one. That's a singleton. That's a one-time. We'll have to run some wiring. There'll have to be. I believe they'll be wired somehow into our different security systems, and really it's infrastructure. Once that's done, that's over. So we kind of have done. If you looked at last year's security budget and so on, every year we try to continue to upgrade our security and infrastructure, and we're in a very good place, and then we're getting to the end of our infrastructure, if you will. This would just be one of the last. I'm not going to say the last edition, but one of the last editions. We're getting closer to it every year. Any other questions on the security budget?
Nope.
Perfect. And
Thank you.
last, and lastly is really just a wrap-up summary. Your security budget includes a large group area strobe lights, renumbering of your classrooms. Certainly, there's always maintenance and upgrades of your camera system, and those will be small items that were in that budget. We are planning to maintain our current security team with one additional security staff, full-time staff member. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be a full-time person. The hours will accumulate to full-time. I've noticed that this year, in doing staffing all of our different needs, we could use those additional hours to get that done without going over what we currently have. Okay.
Greg, this is George Haas.
Yes.
I guess I was just wondering, what happens if we lose power?
Well,
Do any of our security measures have backup power, or, I was just kind of wondering on that.
well, that's a question that kind of would go to a lot of us. So I could talk from a facility standpoint. Is initially we don't have a generator in the high school, but that doesn't mean we've automatically lost our capabilities to perform our security measures. And who else is on? Is
Jerry on.
Jerry on? Or even
Jerry is on, but she has it on mute.
okay.
So George,
have-
we'd have to get back to you with a technical answer. Jerry, you on?
I'm in as Jerry, so I think that's why you're seeing her name. I don't know if Jerry's on.
Okay,
Okay.
so that is a question we'd have to get back to. George, I do know we have the capability to continue to run our security measures. It's for how long, I'm not sure. So I don't want to give you the wrong information.
Okay, if we could get back at some point on that. Thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I think a generator would be worth a discussion down the road at some point in time, and it's an expensive piece of equipment. But it's something that we would have to give you, more details of what we can run in absence of it.
So, George, the answer to your question is we have about 40 minutes of backup power.
There you go.
Great, thanks, Sean.
Sean, that would be on the cameras.
I know that that's for our lights and our phones, so I'm going to assume that that's going to be for the cameras as well.
Good, thank you.
Other questions on security?
No, thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Okay, Frank, you're
Greg.
up next.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for everyone on the call. I'm going to talk a little bit now. It's more of a summary. A lot of the information has been said at this point across different meetings, but just to kind of go over the final tax levy and the final budget and everything, hit the high level discussion items. So as you've seen, the budget to budget proposed budget for this year is going to be 1.55%. Our proposed tax levy is 1.75. And again, we're coming in well below the allowable levy of 2.29%. And then what that means in terms of dollars. So we're looking this year, our budget to budget increase, it's $634,000. That's what the 1.55% represents. Our overall proposed 2021 budget is going to be $41 million. In terms of what that means on that estimated tax levy, well, at this point, tax levy, it's going to be 1.75%, and that amount represents $644,000. So looking at our reserves and our revenue and where the money comes from outside of the tax levy, you see we've continued to use the same traditional revenue sources. So we're seeing modest increases on our state aid this year. So we bumped that up to $3 million, as well as we're using slightly more on our ERS reserve and our EBLAR reserve. The ERS reserve is well funded, and so is the EBLAR reserve. EBLAR is the employee benefits. So when basically you can think of it as like the incentives to retirement incentives and sick time payouts. We can use those as people retire in different situations. So we try to use that when available. We're also seeing similar modest increases on the workers' compensation and unemployment reserve. And again, those are reserves that we can use only up to a certain expense level. So we try to use that when available because both of those reserves are also well funded. Appropriated fund balance, we have $250, and other miscellaneous income is coming in relatively flat, just down slightly at $246,000, which brings like the total of all of those revenue sources to just under $4 million. So it's at $3.9 million. And then that plus our property tax levy of $37.5 million brings you to your total $41,418.
This is Jen. I just had a question, and I'm not sure if Ms. Garash or can answer this. With the closures that are happening this year, and there's that 180-day waiver, does that affect our state aid for next year?
So we have to abide by the 180-day calendar. The governor has not come out with direction on terms of how that will look with regard to the 180 days. He issued an executive order on March 18th through March 31st at this point in time. And what we believe is we were directed to continue to provide instruction at that point in time. But how districts were able to facilitate that in that short period of time, is still the question. But I believe he will reduce the 180-day waiver and give districts some flexibility there. We are expected to receive another executive order either this afternoon or tomorrow from the governor with regard to education for students. Every superintendent had a phone conference with the commissioner yesterday at 11 o'clock. There was not specific direction with regard to the 180-day waiver, but those instructional plans that we had to submit that I just mentioned at the beginning of the call that got approved, that should really solidify our obligation under these conditions and therefore not jeopardize the state aid that we're getting. To ensure that, though, we as a district have taken greater steps to take attendance during the instructional periods. So we have parents at the elementary level calling in to a teacher assistant telling them that whether their child was present or sick that day. And we have the same being done at the secondary level, 7 through 12, taking attendance through the Google Classroom. So if I had to provide any evidence of instruction going on, we have those steps in place to ensure that our state aid and accountability is accounted for.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jill. So the next slide is a summary of the budget drivers. So you can see that the two largest categories is salaries and benefits, which is about 75%, which on the screen would be the blue and the orange. Salaries themselves being roughly half of our budget is the large blue. And then the next largest category outside of that is the instructional and student services. And then you can see some of the other categories add significant amounts, but are much lesser in terms of a percentage basis of our overall budget.
You know what, Frank, I just want to go back to Jennifer's question, though. We do receive aid on food service. And currently, right now, we are not using Whitson's as our food service provider to provide the school lunches to the students with free and reduced lunch. We've been doing, facilitating our school lunch program through donations at this point in time. When we return from break, though, from the April break, we expect that we will use Whitson's the week of April 13th to provide lunch for our students in need twice that week. They'll provide lunch twice that week, and that we would receive the aid on to cover those meals, as long as, you know, we're providing that. So currently we're not getting aid or on the school lunches, but that week of the April 13th, should we not return, then we would get the aid, and then we'll make a determination how we continue to provide either lunches or some breakfast, lunch, and, you know, other staple items for families going forward. But we needed time to regroup the week of April 13th, so that's why we're going back to Whitson's that week, and we're not quite sure of the pickup and that kind of thing. But again, state aid would kick in at that point in time for food service.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, Frank, you're on budget driver.
No, thank you. The final slide here in terms of looking at the categories is broken down by table, so you can kind of see the amounts that I was talking about. You can see the total percentage change there is it's the 1.55%, and you can see the percent of the budget each of those categories kind of makes up. So you can see the salaries, like I said, are about 49%, and then the different expense categories of those benefits, and just broken down in a way that you can kind of see it from a higher level. The big call outs on the slide is really the facilities has gone down quite a bit, and the debt service, and both, in my opinion, very, very good things to see. We're paying down our debt based on amortization schedules, and we've also had some debt mature. And then also on the facility side, just leveraging a lot of prior year investments in both equipment and personnel, and we're bringing a lot of things in-house and really saving a good amount of money there that we were able to reallocate into more instructional parts of the budget. And the last slide.
Frank, hold on one second.
Doug Cooper, Frank, what's the big expense in your textbooks and instructional resources?
So I think the biggest expense there is just additional coursework and new and buying new textbooks. I don't think that we've historically.
Yeah, I'll talk to that, Frank.
It's not money.
Yeah, it's not much money, but one of the things that the district hasn't really used a lot of textbooks. We are looking at, I think, almost a $30-something thousand textbook expenditure just in the area of mathematics in grades 5 through 8, as well as a remedial math program for students, grades 5 through 12, that could be more adaptive. And, you know, particularly some of our teachers at the secondary level are noticing that some of our E&L population could use a mathematics program similar to what we're doing for the language arts portion of that. We have some new coursework that was noted at the high school, so some of that encompasses that. what we have done, so I think you're going to see over the years, though, Doug, that fluctuate just based on needs of specific courses. I want to be clear, I mentioned at a prior meeting that when we do buy a textbook, it's oftentimes digital, and we buy like one set of hard copies for the classroom, but you can either buy like a 1 to 2 year license or a 6-year license. Textbook companies are very savvy. It's really the same cost as buying a hardcover book. But it's a little bit cheaper if you go with the 6-year software license. I also just want to make note, you know, there's probably some questions about payment to employees and fund balance and things like that. At this point in time, the district is still running, as I've mentioned multiple times. We are required to pay our employees, even part-timers. And I want to make clear, our teachers, our TAs, our custodial, our maintenance crews, our administrators, you know, our lunch monitors are not really being called in right now, but everybody else has contributed in some way, although they may not be working full-time. Some people are working even overtime in some areas from day to day, but we are required to pay our employees at this point in time. Now, there might be other areas where, you know, we're not maybe using as much BOCES services right now. Certainly, our professional developers are not being called in to come provide services right now. So depending on how long we're closed, you know, we've budgeted for salaries, but some of these other things might not be utilized. As well, we might need other areas for certain categories that we didn't anticipate, you know, should this go on for a longer period of time. I think we're going to need to make some decisions regarding K-2. Right now, we've been providing the paper copies of instruction and books and things like that. I don't think people even have any idea how much that takes to have somebody from home create that, somebody else to come in and copy it and package it, making sure that our staff is safe, so cleaning those areas each time that person comes in to use that copier, and making sure the security is on, checking our buildings and things like that. So as much as the governor is saying, you know, things are shut down, he's also saying essential employees. And as a district, we are still running an instructional program, a food service program, and potentially next week a child care program. So, you know, so our expenses may change in some areas greater than others. Okay, Frank.
Okay. Thank you, Jill. And the last slide I have here is the proposition highlights. So just summarizing the 3 propositions that you will see. And the first is obviously the budget, the 1.75 levy and the 1.55% budget to budget. The second one is the authorization to expand funds from the capital reserve. And we just spoke earlier, that was the total estimated cost you see here is for the 4 projects. So you will not see the fascia renovation after the amendment is made today to this proposition. And then the third is the authorization to
Frank,
establish.
don't go any further. Frank, hold on one second. So for Proposition 2, it would be a new boiler at Cutchogue East, a new boiler at Cutchogue West, a new roof at Cutchogue East, the multi-purpose room for the high school. Those 3 projects would be, we are proposing to put $650,000 into the capital reserve to cover those costs. Although we went over specific numbers with you yesterday regarding estimates from certain vendors, we've met with the architect. He suggests to go a little bit higher to just make sure you cover your costs. Some of that is also based on when the project gets rolled out. So if we're doing it sooner, obviously those estimates are going to be a lot tighter. If it's a year down the road, the estimate could change. So we want to make sure that we have enough funding covered in those, or is there any unexpected situation? Like, I don't believe there's any asbestos issues or anything here, but perhaps something came up with the roof repair or something there. So again, those 3 expenditures are going to be a cost of an estimated cost of $650,000 in the capital reserve. Later on in the budget, Doug, I'll just ask you to perhaps make the amendment to the propositions later on in the SECRA filing. Okay, Frank. Yes.
This is George. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Did we ever get a figure on removing the boiler?
We did.
Yes, we did, George. And it was slightly more than we'd like to see. Maybe a lot more than we'd like to see.
Like almost $100,000.
Crap.
Almost as much as
That was
the new
from the
boiler.
vendor. Yeah, that was from the vendor. That wasn't even from John, the architect. So it probably may have actually ended up being more than that. May have been, it basically would double the price.
Doug, can you get it out?
Yes, but I'm not legal to do it, George. I think it's likely because it probably has a lot of asbestos on it, and that would all have to be cordoned off and air sampled and everything that goes along with that.
So it's a $98,000 estimate.
Yes.
The original comment though was actually, thinking about leaving it there. I guess there's enough room down there that we could if we decided to do that.
Yeah. There's plenty of room there that it can stay there for the time being, but eventually we should look at removing it. But right now we're going to recommend that it stays.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. And the last proposition is the authorization to establish a repair reserve fund. So as Jill had mentioned earlier, the proposition will be for an initial funding of $750,000. It doesn't have to come. It can come from multiple years, so that's not all going to come this year. And we just would not be able to fund anything above that level. So it's an up to $750,000.
Frank, if you could change that slide to say initial funding of up to.
Do we need the word initial?
I took the language, I mean, there's actual legal proposition language that our attorneys drafted up. And the way that it's drafted, it's a much more elaborate language that says exactly what you can and cannot do. So you'll see that on the agenda. I can change the wording on the PowerPoint slide to whatever
If you
like.
could, Frank, because I don't want people to think like it's a final funding of that, because we could not add to it. We'd have to establish another repair reserve if we were to, need to exceed the 750,000.
Yes, you would have a new proposition. I think that's why it's written as initial, because if you were to go over it, you'd have to get another proposition correct. So I can put in on the slide to say like max level of $750,000.
That would be great.
Yep, no problem. And that's all that I
Jennifer, you had a
had.
question?
If there's any
Hold on,
questions.
Frank. Yeah, Jen has a question.
The repair reserve, does it have a life expectancy of a maximum limit of years like the capital reserve has, or is it unlimited?
No, I don't believe that there's any life expectancy on it. It's there for as we need the projects if they come up. So if there are no projects that come up that we feel are needed for that reserve, the money can stay there. And it's similar to our other reserves that they're just run in perpetuity, and as we have eligible expenses, we can use them. The capital reserve is very different than most of reserves, and it's the most restrictive. The repair reserve is similar to our traditional reserves, except the fact that we put a funding limit on it.
Okay, thank you. Jill, I had a question before the budget presentation's over, just regarding enrollment, just because before I was on mute and I couldn't talk. We've had in the past years the pattern of late summer enrollment and then
of kindergarten, so we anticipate only needing 3, therefore there is 1 extra teacher within the budget to account for any changes, whether it be in August, late August. So we'll make that decision and of course come back to the board with recommendations in terms of that placement at that time.
And any of these that I've
but let me also say, Jennifer, if something were to come up, throughout the year, or we needed to add a teacher assistant, just say there was some crazy spike in some section, you know, we certainly could accommodate that. We might have to do some budget transfer. Thank you, Doug. One code to the next, depending on where we were at that point in time, but we could look at that.
Okay. Great. Thank you. And just there's been just a lot of discussion that I've heard just in light of what's happening now with our local population fluctuating. Have you heard any feedback of new enrollments for next year? I just know because going back to after 9/11, many East End communities had seen an increase of many families coming out to stay here. Any feedback as to if that's going to happen for next year?
You know what, I haven't heard anything. I know Mr. Mealy spoke about, you know, some families. I know some superintendents are a little frustrated by perhaps some people coming out and buying all the groceries up from the city and, you know, having their families out here, but not in terms of enrollment. We've had, I think, one family that is looking to enroll 2 children, but we knew about them before the situation. Beyond that, I want you to know that we do have our registration open. There's a phone line that goes directly to the employee who handles registration. So even though she's not on site, she still can accept the calls and set up appointments, although none have been set up at this point in time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, I do want to just go back to Mr. Baki's propositions. I want to again thank the teachers and the administrators for really putting together, you know, suggested budget line items that really cover all of our education programs that we've been delivering this year, and then some additional ones for next year. Prior to even the coronavirus spread, we were one of the lowest districts on Long Island, putting out budgets lower than the anticipated tax levy. And there was a map actually on Newsday, if people want to reference that. I don't know if some things have changed and districts have done some different things, you know, from that point in time, but you will see on that map in Newsday that, again, like last year, we were one of the lowest districts. We did not go up to the levy. So I'm very proud that we're still able to offer an exceptional education program, both for the gen ed, special education students, extracurricular activities, new courses. I mean, the fact that we offered 12 new courses last year, and I think at least another 6 this year, those students are still enrolling in those classes. The more students that are enrolled in those classes and providing those experiences rather than sitting in a study hall, I think it's really, really important. Our literacy initiatives, we've spent a lot of time and energy on. That will continue next year. Our professional development across all grades, and with a little more focus on mathematics toward, not in the beginning of September or anything like that, but we'll be looking at new programs after January next year. Again, thank you to the administrative team who are on the phone. We couldn't do this without you. You've been very thoughtful. I know we see a lot of line items either going down or up, and because it's based on need, not just rolling over one budget to the next.
Yeah, I just want to add my applause to everybody who worked on this. It's thoughtful, but it still moves us ahead. I'm so proud of this district and all the work that people have put in. It's extremely well done. So thank you very much for all your extra hours. You know, we can feel confident that our students are still receiving the best there is to have. So thank you so much, everybody.
I'll second that. I'll second that.
I wholeheartedly agree too.
Very good team.
Yeah.
Very, very good team.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you, everyone. I appreciate your support and really taking the time to really listen to the suggestions and the proposals. Okay, so I think, Barbara, at this point, we're up on to new business item 3.
So now for the resolution item, Doug, are you going to just mention the changes?
Yes.
Can you read A, Doug, out loud, and then each item, and then talk about the amendments?
You're talking about small a?
Yes.
Yes.
Approve the following secret language for the Type 2 determination for the Massachusetts Union Free School District for 2020-2021 Capital Improvement Program. Whereas the Board of Education of the Massachusetts Union Free School District desires to embark upon the following capital improvements at the district's facilities. First, new boiler at Cutchogue West Administrative Building. New roof, or should be maybe, repairs at Cutchogue East Elementary School. Construction of a multi-purpose room at the Madtuck Junior Senior High School. And Madtuck Junior Senior High School fascia renovations, which we are going to remove. Do we need to make a motion? Which I'll make a motion that we remove the Madtuck Junior Senior High School fascia renovations.
I can second that.
Doug, and then Barbara? You need all in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay.
Now,
Item B also will need an amendment.
changes.
Item B, we will be removing the Madtuck Junior Senior High School fascia renovations from that. And the Union Tree School District authorized to expend $650,000 rather than the $1,465,000. I'll make those two changes in a motion.
And I'll second it.
Doug, and then Barbara?
And then,
Okay.
all those in favor?
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay, and C and D need approvals.
I'll make a motion that we approve C and D.
I'll second it.
Second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Madam Chair.
Mhm.
With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion.
And a second? Go ahead, Doug.
You go, I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate your patience and to the public listening to this. This will be posted on the website within 24 hours. Again, all budget documents that reflect these changes and steps throughout the way are available on the website. If you go up to the top left-hand corner of the district website, it'll bring you to some of these budget presentations. And of course, we're here to answer any questions that anybody may have. You know, in the next few months, as we have presentations, if there's other questions about any of these items, we certainly can address them. Currently, right now, everyone, we have a budget vote for May 19th. I expect within the next day or so, we may be getting additional guidance on how districts are going to run their budget votes. There are discussions about perhaps absentee ballots, perhaps discussions regarding how board candidates can get signatures, maybe electronically. So we will give you more information if any of this changes. We are obligated to still file our legal notice, which will be out tomorrow. And we will do that and continue to follow until we receive any other direction. Library votes have been canceled at this point in time, so we expect some changes and direction with regard to district budgets and making sure, you know, our public is safe and, you know, how we come into our schools to do these votings. But again, providing the community with an opportunity to certainly cast their votes. And in our case, it will be the 3 propositions. We will have a budget newsletter that we already started working on that will go out to the public that will outline all the specifics as well. So people get that hard copy in the mail once the legal notice goes out, and then we can immediately start that newsletter finalizing it.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Joe.
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.